pandemic, this situation. Then David, I ask you the first question. ¿Cuál cree, in Spanish and English, for the program, of course, cuál cree que es la relación que existe entre la salud y la biodiversidad? What you can, what can you tell us about the relation between health and biodiversity? Is our first question.
Right. Well, there is a very close relationship between health and biological diversity. We live in a world rich with animals, plants, fungi, and other living creatures. And that's part of what makes our world beautiful and functional ecosystems that help us by filtering water, by controlling the seasons to some extent, biological diversity, hugely important, hugely valuable. But all of those animals, plants, fungi, bacteria contain viruses, contain their own unique viruses. We live in a world of viruses. And when we disrupt biological diversity, when we go into our rich forests and capture animals or kill animals for food, cut down trees, harvest resources for the use of human beings, we expose ourselves to the viruses that those creatures carry, and in particular animals. And so, so as we consume and destroy biological diversity, we bring new viruses toward us, and we compromise our own health by exposing ourselves to these unique viruses carried by wild animals, many of which, or at least some of which, have the capacity to become viruses infecting humans. That's where COVID-19 has come from. That's where Ebola virus has come from. That's where our influenzas come from. They come from biological diversity. Viruses themselves are a form of biological diversity. So health and biological diversity, or sickness and biological diversity, they're part of the same balance. And we have to live in balance with biological diversity in order to preserve our own health.
Perfect. I think that Tata begin the translation or later.
I think
Después,
later. Yeah, I
not
think
a
later.
problem.
Okay.
Then
So
the second question, Angelica
keep
or
with the
Angela Maria.
Tata. Keep with the questions.
El micrófono, Tata.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meeting you, and thank you for being here. Our second question is in English, and then I said in Spanish. What is the role of biodiversity, and how does it apply in the pandemic? I think that's together with the first question, but maybe we can expand a little bit more. So, ¿cuál es el papel de la biodiversidad en la pandemia? Y le digo a David que esto va un poco ligado con la primera y que él puede expandir un poco más en esta segunda pregunta.
So this pandemic began with a virus that has probably come from bats. We don't know for sure the source of this virus yet, but the evidence is overwhelming that this is a virus that is descended from a very similar virus living in bats in southern China. We don't know how humans came in contact with that bat, how the first human got sick. We know that it only took one interaction between one human and one bat to bring this virus into the human population. So China is a country that's filled with people that still has biological diversity. Interactions between people and biological diversity, as I've said just a few moments ago, give viruses the opportunity to spill into humans to become human viruses. Mammals alone, it is estimated, carry 320,000 unique viruses, mammals. And 1 in every 5 mammals on Earth is a bat. So bats carry many viruses, rodents carry many viruses, monkeys and apes carry many viruses. And when we interact with them, the viruses can infect humans. That's what seems to have happened to begin this pandemic. A virus from a bat got into a human, and that human either was in the city of Wuhan or then traveled to the city of Wuhan in China, brought this virus with him or her, infected other people, and now it has spread around the world. We have 100 million cases. All of that began with one interaction between one human being and one animal, probably a bat. And we don't know, but it most likely was a disruptive interaction of some sort. The bats and the viruses don't come to seek us out. We go to them. We go to them because we want resources for use from the natural world. But in doing that, we also bring viruses upon ourselves, like this virus, the virus that causes COVID-19.
Correct. The more we interrupt their habitat, the more they come to us just for food. Le respondo que entre más nos acerquemos a su hábitat y lo destruyamos, ellos vienen a alimentarse a las zonas más pobladas. La tercera pregunta, ¿qué tan responsables somos los humanos de esta pandemia? The third question goes, David, are humans in any way responsible for this pandemic?
Yes, we are. We can be sure of that. As I've said, we don't know exactly the event that brought a virus from a horseshoe bat into humans, but we know that horseshoe bats eat insects. They don't go anywhere near humans if they have their choice. We know that viruses in bats don't seek humans out. They don't come for us. They spill over into us. A virus can't run, it can't walk, it can't swim, it can't climb. They ride. They ride in other creatures and they spill, they fall from another creature into a human. And so everything that we do that brings us in contact with wild animals brings the possibility of new viruses. Now, that's not just eating wild animals. Some people say, well, I don't eat bats. People in China, maybe they eat bats, but I don't eat bats, so it's not my fault. But anyone who has a cell phone, for instance, is a customer for a mineral called coltan because it's used to build tantalum capacitors. So I have one, you all probably have one. Computers, they contain the mineral coltan, it's necessary. Where is that mineral mined? In only a few places around the world, including in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, wild areas, rich forest, where men and women work to dig coltan out of the earth for us. We are the customers. And as they do that, they have to eat. They need protein. What do they eat? Are there supermarkets in the forest areas of the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo? No. Do they have, can they order a pizza? No. Can they go to a restaurant? No. Do they have frozen fish that's coming to them? No. They need protein. What do they eat? They eat wild animals in most cases. And therefore, they expose themselves to viruses that could potentially become pandemic viruses like the COVID-19 virus. So is there responsibility for everybody? Yes. The choices that we make, what we buy, what we wear, what we eat, how many children we have, if we have children, how much we travel, all of those choices have impact on the natural world and therefore represent our level of responsibility for this problem overall.
Right. You said in one of your interviews that we are more powerful than any other mammal in the world. So we are overpopulating. So the imbalance is right there in front of us.
Yes, there are 8 billion of us on this planet now, and there has never before in the history of the Earth been 8 billion individuals of a large-bodied animal as big as us. Never before. We would know about it from the fossil record if there had been. It's never happened before. So we have this extraordinary impact, this extraordinary responsibility.
Yes, sir. We have to. Fourth question. It says, hoy apareció el SARS-CoV-19. ¿Cuál o cuáles otros virus o enfermedades están latentes y nos ponen en riesgo? Today, SARS-CoV-19 has appeared and has surfaced throughout our planet. Which other viruses or diseases are untapped or inactive today? And do you believe it can or will put us at risk in the future?
Do I believe what will put us at risk?
The new viruses that are surfacing now,
Yes.
that are not yet studied, but for sure you think, and the science are looking into it.
Yes, COVID-19 is not the last event like this. There is more coming. There, as I said, there are so many viruses out there, many of which could be dangerous to humans. 320,000 just in mammals. So there are certain kinds of viruses that are more likely to come at us and threaten us with another pandemic. Coronaviruses, we know, are very dangerous. We knew that before this event. When I published Spillover in English in 2012, I explained that scientists then were warning about coronaviruses, a coronavirus coming from an animal. Influenza viruses. We hear about influenza viruses all the time. They're the flu. It's very familiar, and yet it can be very dangerous. Influenza viruses can be very dangerous, and so the next pandemic could be an influenza virus. There are a few other groups of viruses, including the group that includes measles. There are other viruses related to that that could be very dangerous. All of these viruses have two things in common. Viruses from those groups have been known to infect humans in the past and transmit from one human to another. Measles, the influenzas, the original SARS, and those viruses change rapidly. They can evolve, they can adapt to new hosts. That's part of what makes them dangerous. So we need to be prepared for future spillovers, future outbreaks of new diseases. If we are adequately prepared, we can prevent those future outbreaks from turning into pandemics. And that's what we need to do.
I hope governments around the world will actually invest in that, no matter when it's going to happen.
I hope so too. I hope so too. Now we have a new president of the United States, and one of his first acts was to rejoin the World Health Organization. Crazy that the previous president pulled us out of the World Health Organization. Now we're back in it. We want to be a good member of the international community, and part of that involves supporting the World Health Organization.
Absolutely. And as humans, also be more conscious about how we eat, how we purchase, and how we behave as a community. The fifth question goes, the UN has been working and developing measurements to put in place in order to be ready for a situation like we are living at this present moment. However, the pandemic is out of hand, we can say. How can we approach the future and be ready for the next pandemic without creating a major social collapse? The translation goes, desde la ONU nos habíamos preparado de alguna medida para una situación similar a la que estamos viviendo hoy en día, pero se salió de las manos, podemos decir hoy en día. ¿Cómo podemos prepararnos o qué debemos hacer para una próxima pandemia? David.
Well, I mentioned that the US has rejoined the World Health Organization. That's a duty that we have. All countries have a duty, I think, to support the World Health Organization underneath the United Nations and strengthen the international cooperation to respond to pandemics when they threaten, but also to be alert for pandemics so that when there is an outbreak, when there is a new disease that affects 12 people, 24 people, 30 people in some remote place in the American Southwest or in China or in Central Africa, there there are trained individuals, men and women, who can be on the scene very quickly to solve the mystery of what that new disease is, to identify a new virus if there is a new virus, to provide samples of that virus that can be sequenced, the genome can be sequenced, so that the information about this virus can very, very quickly go out around the world. We need to be prepared with that, with strong international agreements, and with training, with capacity building. We need more public health people. We need more molecular biologists. We need them in the United States. We need them in Colombia. We need them in Chile. We need them in China. We need them in the Congo. We need to support training of biologists and public health officials in all countries so that they can be interconnected and detect the next threat early, before it gets into the capital cities, before it gets to the international airports, so we can contain it. We will have diagnostic testing very quickly on the scene. We will have screening in airports. We will have contact tracing. We will have vaccine platforms that can be adapted very quickly to a new virus. We need all of that. It takes money. It takes understanding by the public how important science and public health are. It takes good national leadership. It takes international cooperation. And it takes an educated citizenry, a citizenry who understand how important this is, and who support science, who support training of our young people in science, and who support public health measures necessary to contain these outbreaks before they spread.
Correct. It's an overall re-educating ourselves to be conscious and how we're treating each other, the world, and how we communicate now between countries. That's very crucial.
Yes.
David, in Spillover, the book you published in 2014, you mentioned that Africa is a place where there is a high possibility of generating a virus or an infectious disease. This time SARS-CoV-19 originated in Asia. That's what we believe. Are there some risks in South America similar to what happens in this continent? En el
Yes.
libro Contagio, excuse me, David, en el libro Contagio usted habla de África como un lugar donde hay altas posibilidades que se genere un virus o una enfermedad infecciosa. Esta vez se originó en Asia. ¿Hay riesgos en Sudamérica similares a los que pasa en este continente?
Yes, indeed. Certainly South America, with its great biological diversity, also has great potential to produce another dangerous virus. We have heard about a few viruses, dangerous viruses, that are native to South America. Machupo virus was discovered in 1961 in rodents in Bolivia. It causes something called Bolivian hemorrhagic fever. Fortunately, that outbreak was contained, and it's a very bad virus, but it doesn't spread really quickly from one human to another. It's carried by rodents. Junin virus is also a South American virus. So there are more to be discovered. The great biological diversity on the continent of South America, we know there are vast riches there, vast treasures. There are also viruses living in those wild animals. And so I think that we have been simply lucky so far that a major transmissible virus has not emerged from South America. It could happen. All the more important for us to be training biologists, training young biologists in the countries of South America, training young disease scientists, public health officials. Absolutely necessary to be training children in biology, introducing them to the idea of evolution and ecology, because all of this, the subject of infectious disease and pandemic, it's all about ecology and evolutionary biology. So we need to educate the young people and support advanced training, university education, and postgraduate education for as many people as we can in all the countries of the earth, but in particular in the countries that are blessed with having large amounts of biological diversity.
Right, and South America is rich on that. So we
Absolutely.
definitely a society that is educating our new generation a little more into playing with nature and loving it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have another question. Are viruses our enemies or the contrary? Are they our teachers or masters? ¿Son los virus nuestros enemigos o al contrario, son nuestros maestros?
That's a very interesting question, and it's timely for me because I've just published a story about viruses. I write a lot about viruses, but an article in National Geographic magazine. The American edition has just come out. It's on the cover. It's about viruses that can cause disease, but also viruses that have played important positive roles in the history of evolution. Viruses have been hugely important, not just in causing disease in humans, but in triggering major evolutionary transitions, because viruses have the capacity to move genes from one kind of creature to another. In the course of infecting a creature and then moving into a different kind of creature, viruses sometimes carry genes with them that then become part of the genome of the new creatures they infect. It's a very complicated process called horizontal gene transfer. I won't explain it, but it occurs, and it in some cases has benefits. For instance, the human genome, all of us, contains 8% viral DNA that has been brought into the lineage of animals, and then the lineage of mammals, and then the lineage of primates over tens of millions of years by viral infection. 8% of our genomes are viral genes that have become part of us. And one of those viral genes forms a membrane around the placenta during human pregnancy that's absolutely essential for transporting nutrients into the fetus and for carrying waste products from the fetus out to the mother so that she can excrete them. This membrane is built by a gene that formerly built a membrane around viruses. It became part of the animal lineage, and it was transformed, it evolved to perform a function, and now it makes possible internal pregnancy in mammals. Without it, we would still be having to lay eggs on the ground instead of being able to carry young inside the woman's body. It's a huge evolutionary advantage for mammals, and it comes from viruses.
This is just magnificent how out of world that is it sound, but it is so magical because nature is just so precise, and we just got to be patient but not destroying it, instead just loving it. I just put so much love emphasis in all this biodiversity. David, and last question, what motivated you to become a journalist with the scientific emphasis or background? And
I was always interested in the natural. Oh, do you want to?
Yeah, let
pose
me
the question in Spanish? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Por último, ¿qué te motivó a dedicarte a ser periodista con énfasis científico?
Yeah. Even when I was a boy, when I was 11, 12 years old, I was interested in two things. I was interested in writing. I wrote little stories and poems and plays, and I was interested in the natural world. I spent my Saturdays and Sundays in the woods by our house. I brought snakes back to my bedroom. As a matter of fact, I still have a snake that lives in my office right over there. He's in that tank. He's a rescue python named Boots that keeps me company. I've always loved the natural world, and I've always loved books. So eventually I put these two things together. I started my writing career as a novelist, writing fiction. And then I realized, no, that's not the kind of writing that I want to do. And it's not the kind of writing that the world needs me to do. And so I started writing journalism about the natural world, about natural history, about animals and plants, and then more and more scientific articles as I learned more and more science, simply because it was part of my journalistic beat. I read more and more Charles Darwin. I learned more and more about ecology and evolutionary biology. The work of Charles Darwin exploded in my brain with this great effect, the majesty of this theory of evolution. And I stopped writing fiction and I turned into a nonfiction writer, doing journalism for magazines and newspapers and writing books, and keeping my two interests, natural world, biology, and writing, keeping them together. I still love literature, but I love science too.
That's fascinating, especially you're in Montana, correct? So it's
Yes.
such a vast territory and so much biodiversity and so much to explore, and it's just so beautiful, that area from the United States. I hope Woods is from there, is from those areas. So
Yeah.
growing up, I imagine there is just fantastic. So from writing novels and then fiction and now science is like all became together with this pandemic. So we can wait to read your books.
Well, thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Thank you. It's very
David,
nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass the word to Angelica, and if you have few minutes to hear our panelist.
Yeah, Tim, you have another question to David?
No, but David need to go to the other interview. But I think, David, thank you for your analysis, for your passion. Yes, for
Very
your
welcome.
knowledge, for your knowledge. It's necessary to share that three things: passion, brain, love, and of course, knowledge. Is a good combination for the successful and of course for the humanity. For your book is a good proof of that situation, is a good testimony for that situation. Thank you, David. Is for us is a magnificent opportunity to talk with you, and um, um, that the other person to listen to your interview in the future sure learn more and motivate for save the planet. Thank you, David.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I look forward to the festival tomorrow, and thank you for helping me by speaking with me in English. Yo no hablo español un poquito pequeño, but I'm very, very pleased for the opportunity to be able to interact with you. So muchas gracias.
David,
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, David.
We wait for see you in Cartagena, maybe the next year on the High Festival.
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the team for this moment.
Thank you, David.
David,
Gracias, Tata. Gracias.
Thank you,
should we follow
David.
you on Instagram, or should we look into your website if you have? How come
I'm not on Instagram much. I am on Twitter. So at David Quammen, you can find me on Twitter.
Okay.
And I have
we will.
Perfect.
We're gonna
Okay.
join.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you,
Muchas
David.
gracias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye.